and welcome back to my channel. So I am here with another Kundalini Explained video for you today, and we are going to dive a little bit deeper into the Kundalini energy. When I went into the question, is Kundalini dangerous? Another question from somebody on Instagram came up, which was, what is the difference between a Kundalini Awakening and Kundalini Yoga? And I thought this was such a great question to answer, and I wanted to make a video solely about that. So in the video, what is the Kundalini energy? I explained how the Kundalini energy is really a concept that came from Hinduism and from Shiva and Shakti, and Shiva's, stoic, meditative, kind of dormant self, and the Shakti energy like moving around him, and then those two merging and dancing together. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it below. It's also earlier on in the playlist of the Kundalini Explained videos. So the Kundalini energy is not a concept that was created by Kundalini Yoga. Kundalini energy exists on its own and sits as that kind of coiled snake dormant at the base of our spine. But Kundalini energy as a whole is reflective of our state of consciousness. So it's your thoughts, it's your feelings, it's everything that you are, everything that you think, what you remember, what you can visualize, it's everything. It's your consciousness. That is Kundalini. And when we activate higher states of consciousness, we're doing that by stimulating this Kundalini energy and raising it. And that actual raising of the Kundalini energy represents how your consciousness is raised. When we practice Kundalini Yoga, we do it for very specific time periods and in very specific sequences, so to stimulate that in a really safe but effective and powerful way. The Kundalini energy is very powerful. A Kundalini awakening is a rapid movement of your Kundalini energy up your chakras when they're all cleared, because the Kundalini energy can only move up and down freely when all your chakras are cleared, and we all tend to have some different blocks in our chakras and in our energy field, and so the Kundalini energy isn't moving freely all the time. But if your chakras are all cleared and you have a Kundalini awakening, that is an abrupt motion upward of your Kundalini energy, and it can bring about amazing things for you, but it can also feel a little bit overwhelming and a little bit scary, which some people have experienced in their life. Kundalini yoga is meant to stimulate that energy, but its intention is to activate it slowly over time, not to awaken it at once. Because Kundalini energy is actually separate of Kundalini yoga was just created as a spiritual practice to stimulate it and activate it. Anything in your spiritual journey and on your healing path can awaken and activate that Kundalini energy. So it's not Kundalini yoga that causes a Kundalini awakening. Kundalini awakenings can occur anytime doing anything. Reiki, any form of yoga can cause Kundalini awakenings. So Kundalini yoga is not the only way to stimulate the Kundalini energy. Any kind of spiritual practice that is meant to raise consciousness is stimulating that Kundalini energy. We don't have control over Kundalini awakenings. They can occur kind of any time in someone's spiritual journey. So it's not really something that we're seeking. We're not seeking a spiritual Kundalini awakening in Kundalini yoga. We're seeking higher states of consciousness, which involve working with the Kundalini energy, but it's not about raising it all the way up to this expanded level of enlightenment. It's about dealing with the everyday heaviness and density of life and being able to calibrate our bodies back to love and back to this balanced, grounded place, remembering who we really are, because the day-to-day life of a human is really complex and it can be really, really confusing, and we start to think and believe that we are these things that we're not, that we are our anxiety or that our depression is part of who we are. And when we practice Kundalini yoga and accessing these higher states of consciousness for these moments and these postures, then we really come back to the remembrance of who we really are. It's not about attaining enlightenment. We don't practice Kundalini yoga, the householder's yoga, to attain enlightenment. We practice it to be able to deal with the harshness of reality in our world and living in our world and the state of our nervous system due to that reality. So it's not just Kundalini yoga that can cause a Kundalini awakening. It's any type of spiritual practice that can activate the Kundalini energy. And I wanted to make that clarification that Kundalini energy exists on its own. Kundalini yoga isn't the only stimulator of that energy. Every other spiritual practice is working with that energy. It's just obviously in the name of Kundalini yoga. I wanted to make another distinction because when I was asked this question, it was also brought up, the term was brought up, Kundalini short circuit. And I've actually never heard that term before, and I did a little bit of digging, and basically on what I found, it was representative of that rapid rise of the Kundalini awakening, which to some people can feel like very overwhelming, very scary, almost like you're on like a bad drug trip or like psychosis. People have reported like disturbing side effects from that. We spend days, weeks, months, years preparing ourselves to stimulate this energy in practice, doing, kind of smaller practices and gradually increasing our time in the practice over time. So we're slowly raising our consciousness and becoming more aware so that we're not hit with it all at once. And when people are experiencing things that are seeking Kundalini awakenings, it can cause this kind of short circuit effect where it's rapidly raised and you're just, your nervous system, your body, your mind, your spirit's not prepared for it. You weren't doing anything leading up to it. There are people that practice Kundalini awakenings and that do these energy transmissions for Kundalini awakenings. But if you are not somebody that has practiced meditation, that's felt this energy, that has a relationship with this energy, that's not something that I would personally do or recommend, because it's not necessarily safe. It can bring a lot of joy, sure, and a lot of bliss and a lot of really good feelings, but it can also bring some negative side effects as well. People have trouble sleeping, or their sleep patterns get disrupted. They have anxiety or depression, a lot of fear, and just struggle with kind of reality. Because if you think about like rapidly raising your consciousness to like the highest level, and then you see your life, and it can just like lead you into this spiral of like, who am I? What am I doing? What's the point of life? Things like that are just it's so intense to have that level of clarity and bird's eye view on everything so quickly without any kind of preparation. So I know that there are people out there that are like specifically aiming for Kundalini awakenings, and every yogic text, every teacher I've ever spoken to is like, a Kundalini awakening isn't something that you seek out. It's something that naturally happens over time in a devotion to a spiritual practice. Mine tends to be Kundalini yoga. I love it so much. It makes me feel so good, and that's coming from somebody who has struggled with anxiety her whole life. This practice makes me feel deep peace and remembrance of that peace within me, and how I can hold on to it and come back to it over and over and over again. So Kundalini yoga is incredibly safe, and a Kundalini awakening is not the same thing as Kundalini yoga. That's something entirely different, and I would not pursue that. I don't pursue it. It's something that happens naturally when your body is ready in its time, and that's it. So I hope this makes sense. If you have any other questions about this, or if you want me to clarify even more, please drop it in the comments. I think this is an important conversation to have, because I feel like this is the reason why so many people don't want to practice Kundalini yoga, is because they have heard scary stories about Kundalini awakenings, or maybe even this term short circuit, Kundalini short circuited, and so they shy away from anything that stimulates the Kundalini energy, but they're still on a spiritual path and doing all these other things like Reiki and Qigong and sound baths and things that naturally stimulate that energy of higher consciousness. So it's not Kundalini yoga that causes the awakenings. I hope this makes a lot of sense to you guys. It's so hard. I feel like I'm covering it, but I'm also trying to anticipate any questions that you might ask. So hopefully I did an okay job explaining that for you. Let me know if you need anything else in the comments. Thank you for joining me here today. I love you, and I will see you back here again soon. Mwah.